reference to homecoming, which I would like to read to members. Dear Councillor Collins, thank you very much for making everyone, particularly the Royal Scots Borderers, so welcome in Dumfries today. People of Dumfries gave the battalion a very well-deserved welcome home, and it made everyone very proud to see the battalion marching straight with bayonets fixed for flying. I should be grateful if you would pass on to the Council my thanks for their most generous hospitality. Welcome. Very many thanks for a splendid day. Ask for the Sederunt and apologies, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Confirm there are 40 members present this morning. I have apologies from 7 members: Councillor Pislett, Councillor Dick, Lever, Councillor McCutcheon, Councillor Nicholson, Councillor Ogilvie, and Councillor Tate. Chairman.
Thank you. Can we go now to item 2 on the agenda, declarations of interest? No declarations. Thank you. A minute of meeting of 30th of May 2013 for approval. I move.
Happy to second it, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Marshall.
Yes, sorry, Chair. Yeah, it's with regard to the 3.8 and page 8 of 142. I'm just challenging whether that is an accurate minute with regards to the fact that it says that for schools with a pupil roll of 150 or fewer, the implementation of partnerships and consequent introduction of non-class committed head teachers. It was apparent and it was raised at the meeting that there's 2 examples, Colside and Locker Briggs, that actually have numbers below 150. And also in 3.11, when it says concerns at some schools, I think it was identified that 2 schools in particular, Bridekirk and Elmvale, and just wonder if that was actually included within the supplementary notes.
Mr. Haswell, thank you.
Thanks, Chairman. Just for members' information, yet individual schools mentioned are not mentioned. Officers are known by name. I have an assurance from the executive. However, last member, paragraph 2, what is minuted.
Councillor Smith.
Chair, surely there's a governance issue whereby a recommendation from council officer may be accurate in minutes, but inaccurate. The recommendation was that schools 150 or below included in the cluster review. That was the recommendation by members, but it now transpires that recommendation is inaccurate because, in fact, several schools that don't have a capacity, a role of 50 and less included from the cluster.
No, sir, I didn't make myself clear. 3.8 for members to determine an accurate record. What I said in response to Councillor Marshall is that there were a number of schools mentioned, and the Director of Education speaking directly himself, he is making sure that they are aware of what's happening and putting arrangements. Didn't say that he was doing something other than the figure of 100.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Councillor Carruthers.
If you're moving on, that's fine, Chair. I agree with 3 points being a true reflection of what happened.
Thank you. Item 4, Unaudited Accounts 1213, report by Head of Finance. This is very much a process report. The Council is required to receive its unaudited accounts before 30th June 2013. There are 2 sets of accounts: the unaudited annual accounts and the Pension Fund's unaudited annual report and accounts. Copies of the reports have been circulated to members today, and the process is that these will be submitted to the Controller of Audit and the external auditors who will undertake the statutory audit, reporting back to Audit and Risk Management Committee on 24 September 2013. The audit will thereupon be finalised and presented to the Controller of Audit. Mr. Garrett, is there anything you would like to add to this?
Thanks, Chair. Just one point to add following the Supreme Court ruling in relation to equal pay. The Council's accounts reflect a provision of just under £8 million in relation to equal pay, both in relation to the cases affected by yesterday's ruling and other potential equal pay liabilities. Now, that money is in provisions, and what provisions are effectively money already set aside, money already paid for in relation to future liabilities. So the key point is that although there's still a lot of work to be done to assess the detailed implications of yesterday's ruling, we do not anticipate that that will result in any additional financial burden on the Council beyond that that's already been set aside. So obviously that will be subject to further development and details to members through the Policy and Resources Committee. We do not anticipate any additional financial costs.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thanks very much, Chairman. Certainly, sure it'll be a matter of further reports to the Council, but certainly hope that the Council accept the ruling yesterday in a dignified way, and we don't continue to take a legal avenue. But just on that, obviously, Paul makes reference to a document that frankly none of us have actually seen. I think it's on our desks. We're constantly being told from governance that what noting means, and at the very least, it probably means you've read the damn thing in the first place. You know, but when asked to note a document we haven't actually read, surely the recommendations in the agreement today is that all we're doing is noting receipt of the accounts. We're not noting the accounts because, frankly, unless somebody is an incredibly quick reader and picked the document up 10 minutes ago and read it, then frankly we can't note a document we've never read.
Thank you. Mr. Haswell.
I understand fully. I think we say members were agreeable. This is a statutory requirement, happens year on year. Perhaps the recommendation is something to effect to note that the unaudited accounts from the Council and the Pension Fund have now been submitted to the Controller of Audit, or are being submitted to the Controller of Audit and to the external auditors for auditing. That fit the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Haswell. Okay, members happy with that recommendation? Thank you. Move on now to item 5 on the agenda. Dumfries and Galloway Single Outcome Agreement 2013-16. Report by Chief Executive. As the report highlights, this is actually a refresh of the SOA agreed by the Council last year, updated to take account of new guidance from COSLA and Scottish Government. The updated SOA presented here continues with the same 6 priorities of the Council, and much of the performance information is already contained in our business plans. The Council's 7 equality outcomes can be seen in the equalities activity and the 10-year vision and prevention information. Draw on the number of strategies and plans which committees have developed and signed off over the past year. Over the lifetime of the agreement, financial profile and performance information will be updated and members will be kept informed of that progress. Presented here for the Council's approval following endorsement by the Strategic Partnership and approval by individual statutory organisations this week. I'll ask Mr. Haswell if he has anything to add to the Chief Executive's report.
Thanks, Deputy Leader. Nothing to add, but pleased to say I have an expert on the right-hand side here. Let's answer them.
Any members, any questions? Councillor Smith.
How could you avoid it? Alex is properly, isn't it? By inviting people to question her on something like this. I mean, one of the things that was highlighted by the Local Government Committee of the Scottish Parliament recently was real criticism of partnerships across Scotland, and I frankly I share that criticism, no more so in Dumfries and Galloway, where frankly the partnership does not reflect views of the people of Dumfries and Galloway and does not reflect political makeup of the council. For political purposes, the Labour group were excluded from that partnership and actually have absolutely no say whatsoever in the development of this particular document. And I think that's probably reflected in some of the clear admissions from the document. People, if you like, arguing the council's place at the table, have completely avoided certain particular issues. There's three things that are not contained within the single outcome agreement. If you look at other single outcome agreements across other councils, are being addressed but are not being addressed by this council, despite the fact that actually a bigger challenge for this region and any other part of Scotland, the issue of low pay, for example, is excluded from here. We get a passing reference to it, yet the reality is that Galloway is the lowest paid in Scotland. It's the only region that's actually seen a cash terms fall in incomes over the last 3 years, yet that isn't actually reflected at all in any of our performance criteria as a council, never mind in our single outcome. I think that's shocking that an issue such as that is excluded. The other big challenge, the Chief Executive is on record saying that the single biggest challenge facing this council at the moment is welfare reform. The phrase welfare reform isn't even mentioned in the single outcome agreement, never mind the fact that the performance criteria try to reflect the additional responsibilities and challenges we've got as a council to mitigate against that. And finally, what's excluded as well is the issue of youth unemployment. We've got a performance that refers to the fact that our target is that the number of people in job seekers allowance should be, I think, 0.2% less in Dumfries and Galloway than the rest of Scotland. Well, that's fine, but the biggest challenge faces our region is the tragedy of youth unemployment. Youth unemployment in this region is 0.6%. It's well above the UK average, it's well above the Scottish average, yet as a council, we don't seem to have any direct target to try to mitigate and target youth unemployment. So those three omissions, in my view, are massive omissions, yet being addressed by any of our partners, and certainly not being addressed by the council. I think the other issue is that I'm curious at the timescale. It seems to imply that this document was either agreed by strategic partnership way back in January, at the very least, amendments were agreed back then, but we are receiving it on the 27th of June. It happens to be the date it has to be agreed. Another example of a report being put in front of members stamp on the last day possible. And it's also just a couple of weeks before we actually review our business plans as a council. Surely we should be agreeing the business plans first and then amend the single outcome agreement as a result of those business plans. Because I know that my group certainly has got a lot of views they want reflected in the business plans ahead, and these should be included in our single outcome agreement. So, we seem to be kind of doing one thing before we've actually what our business plans are for the forthcoming year as a council. Curious as to the particular timescale, and I'm curious to ask those people who actually champion the cause of the council on the strategic partnership why they managed to exclude youth unemployment, low pay, welfare reform in the discussion.
Ms. Blanchard?
Yep. In respect of the specifics that are in the SOA document, the strategic partnership did take the view that welfare reform in itself thing should not be explicitly set apart from other aspects of reform, and that the issues which will affect our region arising from the change affect housing, employment, access to benefits, that they would be embedded throughout the system. So while the Chair's forward just mentioned welfare reform has been addressed, it's actually included right throughout the 6 priorities rather than as a project or an issue in itself. So that's the approach that the partnership think that they're very mindful of. With regard to low pay and youth unemployment, again, there are indicators within the which refer to and I think there's a balance between reflecting perhaps the whole of employability action plan in the or selecting areas where joint activity which fit with approach. So again, I think I would assure you that partnership is mindful of those and the way in which is to embed them as priority. With regard to the timescale, clearly the timescale is set by the guidance, but again, as an assurance, strategic partnership looks at the 6 months and much like council's approach to its business planning, it use the performance change the performance time singular. And as the covering report highlights, very partners' business planning and making sure reflect what they're trying to achieve and your accountability governance about what the council is doing. So everything contributes in the business. You're monitoring the business. You are seeing exactly. But obviously, these comments from the council as partners in the strategic partnership, report them back to the strategic partnership, and hopefully, very happy.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
I mean, you won't be surprised to know it's properly reflected in the action. No reference at all. See a reference to a target figure on page 2 with support people excluded from labour market back. The actual KPI we're talking about here is to maintain an annual baseline 0% below the Scottish average. Well, that's the overall job seeker allowance, claimant count, and no specific to the far more significant problem, the fact that youth unemployment is way above national average. Target to tackle that. Again, I don't think well is properly reflected in the action. It may very well be that the fact that the actions are there to tackle all the issues around welfare. The reality is it doesn't account additional responsibility we as a council have in welfare funds. The idea. Hopefully we'll agree in relation to that. So I don't think tackle. I don't see any action at all making reference to trying to tackle problem of youth anywhere at all. So I looked at other documents already done this morning. Specific reference to the fact target to increase baseline income of citizens. See, that's what action set for that. I don't see any action at all to try to fall in the problem in the region. That is an action documents that I don't think are adequate. I think as an aside, in terms of the document, I think it's helpful to have baseline figures. We are looking at what targets are, see what the starting is, and I can tell you the starting point comes to a proper action. The average come from Dumfries and Galloway £4 compared to the average of £573. Falling better reflect. Maybe that's an up through the business plans. It comes back to the point that, frankly, Labour Group hasn't had any input at all into this document. It simply hasn't landed on our desk. We're asking for something we're not actually entitled to have any major input into. It doesn't contain every single KPI that business plans. I think those
I can assure Councillor Smith that all of the topics that he raises have been discussed with members, but they very much are responsibilities that lie with committees and the business plans that lie there. And in that regard, all members of this chamber have the opportunity to input, and therefore the SOA is reflective of the business and the way that the business is being conducted, and various issues are being addressed in that form. Okay, can we go to the recommendations to agree the updated, Councillor Martin?
On page 32 of the document, 1.11 says reduce the proportion of stillbirth and infant mortality rates by March the 31st, 2105. I don't think 92 years is a very ambitious target. Take it, it's a typo.
There are a number of typing corrections, and we are literally crossing the T's and dotting the I's, which some members have already contributed, so thank you for that. And if there are any other specifics that you've spotted, we'd be happy to hear from them, but hopefully we've already picked them up.
I think that also reflects the fact that this is a living document. So there at all times for further discussion and debate as a guide. So can we go to the recommendations? Members are asked to agree the updated single outcome agreement 2013-16 as attached. Agreed? Thank you. Councillor Smith?
Make reference to the fact it's a living document. Well, it's not really a living document. The Labour group, we don't get to see it, we don't get to discuss it, we get to put it on the table once a year. Presumably, we can add another recommendation there, or rather, be another item which is to agree to receive a further update following agreement of the department's business plans for the forthcoming year, recognising the challenges facing as a result of welfare reform, youth unemployment, low pay. Presumably, we're going to get another update on the single outcome agreement as soon as the plans are get it here from the CAR.
No, there will be updates, but there is an opportunity at all times, as I say, because this is a living document.
Can I just
There's an
confirm when the
opportunity.
opportunities are then?
Ms.
Just confirm
Manson?
when the opportunities are, because it doesn't appear on the agenda of the council on a regular basis.
Very happy to bring you an update once the partnership has half year for the information. I think if I could just highlight the council's business plan reflect any commitments that are grown rather than everything. So clarify that relationship. And yes, we certainly make sure that all councillors receive monitoring. Happy.
Thank you. We agree the recommendations? Thank you. Going to item 6 now on the agenda, fourth periodic review of the scheme for the establishment of community councils and Dumfries and Galloway report by Director of Community and Customer Services. The Council is required to periodically review its scheme for the establishment of community councils in Dumfries and Galloway. This is the fourth such review, and the report sets out the outcome of the consultation with community councils in relation to the scheme and associated documents. The next stage in the process is to consult directly with those community councils who are seeking boundary changes, name changes. There's a considerable amount of paperwork, but this is essential to provide a governance framework for all community councils to operate within. I'll ask Harry Hay if he has anything to add to his report.
Thanks, Deputy Leader. Hopefully, between your introduction and the report, it's fairly self-explanatory. As per the already agreed programme, we will be coming back to full council again on the 28th of November of this year for a further refinement of the framework, and community councils, indeed the wider public, will be giving the opportunity again to look at the decisions that elected members make at full council today. So on that basis, happy to take any questions.
Just clarify, Mr. Hay, 28th or 29th of November.
It's the full council in November. I've certainly got it in the report as the 28th.
Okay, thanks very much. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Chair. Whilst it's nice to see Hay in amongst us in Dumfries, it's not the Director of Customer Services. As far as I'm aware, Justin Tracy is still in employment within this council. Could you tell me where he is today?
No.
Perhaps Mr. Hassel, as Acting Chief Executive, could tell me where he is today.
My understanding, Harry, Councillor Foster, have the opportunity answering questions.
If we could just come back briefly, Chair. Whilst I'm delighted to see Harry here and respect for him, this is the Director's report here.
Thank you. Councillor Dryburgh.
Thanks, Chair. Just 2 points, perhaps. In page 117 of 142, when we go through the different community councils, if you look at number 10, you've got Kilpatrick, Fleming and District, and then you go over the page, you've got Kilpatrick, Fleming and District in Nithsdale, and then you've got Kilpatrick, Fleming and District in Wigtown area. Now, they're a lovely bunch, the Kilpatrick Fleming and this side, but I'm sure they don't want to take over anywhere else than they actually are. There is just one other thing, Chair, which is a real concern for some of the community councils within the Annandale and Eskdale area, and that is the protection of assets should the community councils actually fold when it comes back into, you know, the 3-year side of things, when it comes into the protection of the council. Now, certainly some of the community councils within our area have raised real concerns that it should actually go back to the local community group as opposed to coming to the councils. Perhaps we could get some advice as to what discussions have been had in that particular area.
Mr. Hay, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I'll obviously correct the error that was highlighted. In terms of protection of assets, I think generally it will very much depend on what those assets are and what's been written into any title deed, for example, as to if there is a dissolution clause in place, what the wishes of that organisation are. So if, for example, a community council has got a whole range of assets, be them properties or investments, etc., equipment, and they wish that to be available for the greater good should they dissolve, that is perfectly possible to build into their operating arrangements. And if there are specific community councils that have got concerns in that regard, I'm quite happy to get the relevant officers to go and speak to them and make sure that's put in place.
Thank you. Councillor Witts.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. I welcome the report and I note the comments made in paragraph 3.3, particularly with reference to boundary changes. Now, there are clear anomalies, and these came about as far back as 2007, and that you now have a situation, certain circumstances, boundaries of certain councils where they straddle Dumfries and Galloway Council wards, and sometimes we're talking about a tiny fraction in one ward and bundled in with another. And I was hoping that in the interest of efficiency, and seem to have been talking about this for some time, and I seem to remember it being raised in the past, that we were going to move to rationalisation, and obviously it makes sense as far as possible, if, particularly in urban areas, if a community council matches more closely with Galloway Council ward. So I wondered where we were regards to this rationalisation.
Thank you. Mr. Hay.
Thanks, Chair. Certainly, in terms of changing a community council boundary from what it currently stands, the process to enable that to happen is through a periodic review. It can only happen during a periodic review. And I think to date we have received approximately 5 suggested boundary changes, which by their very nature, if one party wishes to change a boundary, then all contiguous community councils and stakeholders also need to agree to that. I think there are examples of where historical boundaries have perhaps been based on what was fit for purpose at that time in terms of spread of population and demographics. And some of the approaches we've had to date in terms of boundary changes are based on the fact that perhaps population spread, a settlement has expanded, etc., that it perhaps would be more relevant to change the boundary. What we've captured in this report is that we intend to look at those requests to date in more detail and come back to elected members at full council in November with exactly what we recommend in terms of how that should be dealt with. I think it goes without saying that a lot of the community councils are very passionate about the communities they serve and the boundaries that they currently have, and what we need to do is change boundaries only for the right reasons. So as the report indicates, we have got a system in place whereby we're going to speak to all community councils involved and also ward members where those types of suggestions have been received.
Thank you. Councillor Geddes.
Thanks very much, Deputy Leader. I think, first of all, sir, I would draw your attention to page 119 of the report, and there's figures there in a Wigtownshire context which are being quoted in, of respect of which I'm suspicious. 104 Royal Borough of Wigton and District. I'm afraid that I don't think that number of electors, 803, is correct. In fact, I'm nearly certain that will not be the case, bearing in mind that that particular community council incorporates Kinner, Pop Hill, so I would ask, in the interest of factual accuracy, check. There's also, for the record, sir, in passing, Sorby Community Council is mentioned there. Currently, it's not operational, though hopefully that will be addressed in the future. But really, the important issue, as far as I'm concerned, Deputy Leader, is it relates to community councillors' code of conduct. And I regret to have to raise it, but, and I know I'm not alone in the chamber, there have been instances over the last several years, which I'm aware, that this code of conduct has not always been observed. And the blunt fact of the matter is that, when complaints have been submitted, there's really not been anything capable of being done. Now, I'm not suggesting that we put in place, Deputy Leader, some form of draconian list of sanctions, not in the slightest. But I think, going forward, we're going to have to look, and I hope we would agree to look going forward at making this code as enforceable, albeit with as light a touch as we possibly can do so. And ask for an assurance that will be taken forward as ongoing process.
Thank you. Mr. Hay.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, certainly. We've obviously got the guidance as part of this attachment, and I think an important part of that is how it's actually going to be applied. There's no point having guidance if it then doesn't result in robust application of it. So quite happy to pick that up between now and the next full council that it's considered at.
Thank you. Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think Harry's partly answered the question. Mine was with regards to Section 4, which is the community council boundaries. But really the question was, what initiates a region-wide community council review? You've explained one reason, which is, request by community councils. But sometimes, change of councillor ward boundaries can initiate a review as well. But what I think would be helpful, because it does come up within community councils, and there's one issue at the moment with the Royal Borough of Annan Community Council. But it would be helpful within the guidance if, you could actually explain what triggers or, when reviews of community council boundaries would take place or what's required to make that happen.
Mr. Hay.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, certainly a boundary change can only happen during a periodic review, and a periodic review is generally triggered by the need to update and refresh what currently happens within the community council's operation. This is the fourth one we've had in Dumfries and Galloway, and based on the good practice we've identified elsewhere in the country and indeed feedback from community councils, we felt this was the right time. What I am quite happy to do, and I think it would be a very proactive step, is simply to highlight to community councils again what this is all about and how they can contribute to it. We have had a range of feedback from community councils already, but particularly for ones that want to use the periodic review to change something, we'll flag that up to them so they're fully aware of the window of opportunity they're going to get.
Thank you. Councillor McKee.
Thanks, Chair. I think given the size of wards nowadays, it's difficult to talk about boundaries, especially when a state divides a community, if you like, and to split a community council in that way is very difficult, though of sympathy with what's been said. Can I ask if the community council boundaries are available in the DGI? Another thing I'd want to raise, Chair, is 3.2, the consultation period. 22nd of July to 13th of September. Unfortunately, the community council in my area not during that period. Though it starts again in September. The dates are not the most appropriate.
I'm sure officers will take account of the best opportunities that are available to them for the community consultation or community council consultation. Be most effective.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, in terms of the boundaries, absolutely, it is sometimes very difficult to know where one boundary starts and one boundary finishes, but we've made available to all community councils copies of the current boundaries. They're also in each of the 4 area framework offices, and they're also in public libraries, and you can also access them electronically. Yeah, through via GIS. So we've actually offered community councils the opportunity, if we want to come along to a community council meeting with the live electronic boundary, that a member of staff will actually hone in on screen and give community councils an idea exactly where the boundaries start and finish. In terms of the consultation time frame, the timetable that full council agreed in November 2012 was the one that's in front of you, members, and when that process starts, it's very much dictated by legislation that these are the timescales and the subsection of these timescales that we've got to stick to. Appreciating that community councils do sometimes stand down in the summer, what I'll ensure we do is get our staff to be as proactive as possible to make sure community councils are aware of this window and it's promoted as being their opportunity to feed into the process.
Thank you. Councillor Dempster.
Thanks, Chair. Two things. One's on page 115, the insurance and liability of community council members. Now, there's always consternation among community councils in relation to what they're actually covered for by the council blanket cover. It might be useful either to have that document attached here or to send it to each council so that they're actually able to read it and determine exactly what they're covered for. I think that would be helpful. Another thing, and Alistair Geddes probably covered it in what he said, but it's page 117, 118 in this jail area. If you look at Kirkconnell and Killahome with 1,600 voters, they have a permitted maximum of 14, and yet if you go to the page of Thornhill, 200 voters less than the permitted maximum. So there's something wrong with the allocation formula. I don't know, one member per 100 voters, what it is, but there is a differential there.
So here.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, in terms of insurance, generally the blanket cover gives community councils insurance for all their normal activity, probably with the exception of events, and we also recommend that they take specific event insurance out. What I can do is, I think we've got a programme of community council meetings coming up fairly soon that can include insurance on the agenda of that, because it is certainly something that a lot of community councils make inquiries about, so I'll ensure that's followed through. In terms of the maximum number of community councils, the details in this report are those that are historically in place. We did try and create a formula that could be applied consistently across the whole of Dumfries and Galloway, but to date we've really struggled to get a formula that didn't result in some community councils coming down from their current maximum number. And the last thing we want to do, obviously, is have a situation where community councils are told, sorry, you've currently got 15 members, but the maximum you're going to allow in the future is 11. So what we've done to try and get round that is put the ball back in community councils' courts, that if they feel they should reduce the number of community councils or indeed change the number of community councillors, this is their opportunity to do that. The one issue with having a maximum number that is perhaps fairly high and unrealistic is that when it comes to the minimum number that's required to have an active community council, on occasions that's been quite difficult for them to meet the minimum number. But community councils should be aware that if they feel they want to change the maximum or minimum number, this is the time to do it.
Councillor Dempster.
Thanks, Chair. I'm grateful to Mr. Hay for that. That's helpful. The only thing I would say about maybe of interest is that, for example, the Sanka Community Council managed the Armed Forces Day event on behalf of Galloway Council, if you like. But as an event with the normal Community Council forum, and that's the kind of thing about accuracy in terms of what we're actually covered for.
Thank you. Councillor McComb.
Thank you, Chair. My question was in relation to the inappropriate timing of the 8-week consultation period. The question has actually already been asked by Councillor McKee.
Thank you. Councillor Peacock.
Thank you, Chair. Again, the question has been partly covered, and it was to concern the insurance liability for the community councils. But just to add on to that, and I'm quite happy with Mr. Hayes' answer on the actual public liability side of But recently and more often now, we're asking community councils to take part in community resilience programs within their own area. And that workshop that was put on by the council, they were putting forward the type of things that they would look community councils to take part in as a community resilience program. One of the community councillors asked, would we therefore be covered by the council's insurance to take part in these activities on your behalf? And the answer was no. So if it does not fall under the public liability side, perhaps the council could look at setting up a separate insurance that may cover them to do these actions that we are asking them to do on our behalf.
Thank you. Mr. Haswell.
Thanks very much. That's very well put point. We will pick up on that. We are very much dependent on encouraging to become more resilient during the bad weather over in west of Dumfries and Galloway. There were several communities stepped up to the plate and absolutely performed brilliantly when council officers weren't able to get to their meeting. So yes, we will take that on board, and I'll look at that through the civil contingencies budget as opposed to community council.
Thank you. Councillor Marshall, same point.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it's the same point. We've kind of mentioned two areas, that kind of extends the duties of community councils, but there's also another issue as well with regards to a number of community councils have land that they're responsible for as well, and that could be amenity land, building play on, etc. We need to clarify, that just the public liability shouldn't cover that aspect of community councils as well, because that seems to be another grey area.
Thank you. Councillor Maitland.
Matters been covered.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, members. We move to the recommendations. To one, note the periodic review is progressing according to the agreed timetable as detailed at Appendix 2. Noted. Happy to note. 2, to agree the scheme and its schedules in Appendix 1 of this report, in particular the changes highlighted. Agreed. And 3, agree to authorise the Head of Improvement, Engagement and Community Services to make arrangements for the second stage of a statutory 8-week public consultation on the draft schemes and its associated documents, and that will take into account comments made by members here this morning. Thanks very much. Moving on now to item 7 on the agenda. Minutes for approval. Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, Chair, one of the good guidance here. I'm looking at the minutes and I do not see a minute from the Welfare Reform Subcommittee. I think I had a meeting either on the 10th or 11th of June. Nowhere do I see this. I come back to the issue in the single outcome agreement that was referred to earlier in terms of welfare reform, it being, or the single outcome agreement being a living document, and reference made to the fact that single outcome agreement would be reflected in the work of the committees, and yet we do not see, or I do not see the minute before me of 10th of June. Perhaps there could be an explanation. Also, in terms of the input in a 7-person subcommittee, then we as the non-aligned group have no input into this committee, and I was going to ask the question in terms of representation of the People's Act, in terms of how we input into this committee, 7-person committee, and the non-aligned group. There are issues, as you can understand, Chair, in terms of appeals against decisions that have already been made where housing benefit has been removed. There's discretionary housing payments. Again, some or a good number are being refused. And there's the issue of eviction, where partners are thinking, I cannot ask these questions when the minute is not before me, Chair. And
Councillor Scobie, the minute will be brought forward to the 19th July full council meeting.
Is there any reason, Chair, why it's not before us today? It's by the date.
Simply because it's being brought forward to the 19th July full council meeting. The decision by this council The decision by this council was that there be a 7-member subcommittee. That stands. So can we move on to the minutes for approval? There are 2 issues I'd like to raise. One, item 4 on the education minute of 28th of May 2013. There is no report before the council today on appointments to the John Wallace Trust. The issue has, however, been dealt with. The trust deed clearly states that it is for the Education Committee to administer the trust. All of the necessary paperwork has been dealt with through the Charities Regulator. All extending applications for funding have been processed, and it's intended that these will be presented to the Education Committee for consideration at its special meeting next week. Members want to alter the trust deed, we will require to go through due legal process. This can be considered by the Education Committee at its meeting. The second, Councillor Dempster.
Thanks, Chair. There was some advice given by the officer who filed the report that members didn't best serve local people, because it is a very local issue. And as a consequence of that, it was chairman's, I think, decision full council members change, if you like, what was proposed by the officer. And I would have to say at this stage, there is no criticism of the officer. It was a very good report, and it reflected the situation. The suggestion was a 9-member, 7-member committee with actually 2 wards covering the first question, 8 members. The suggestion was 8 members would be allowed to serve. That's where the difference was, and it was best dealt with by the full council. If members want to send it back to the Education Committee, I have no difficulty with that whatsoever. I have no difficulty with the office amendment. It was simply felt by all 8 local members like to serve on that committee. That's the situation as exists, and there was never a difficulty in administering it with that particular. That's all it was. Absolutely no criticism at all. It differed from what the office recommended. The office is recommending a formal process which is normally recognised by the council. We were asking to come.
Thank you. Councillor Dykes.
Thank you. Really just to add that number of years the Act come in front of us, and they are waiting a decision as to whether or not they award funding. For that reason, I that back.
Thank you. Mr. Haswell.
There are 2 specific issues here. Councillor Dempster. The issue, however, is that the trust deed specifies that it's the Education Committee. That was made clear to me. I apologise. However, what we can do is we can apply, have the trust deed amended. That goes through a legal process. Councillor Dykes has said we have procrastinated over this for some considerable period of time, as a consequence of which people are waiting for grant applications to be processed. What we considered the best thing to do was to ensure that we were able to administer the grant-giving scheme and at the same time look at an amendment to how the trust is administered. Both of these things will be taken forward, and the idea was to bring forward the application as soon as we possibly could. I'm aware that local members are under a considerable amount of pressure from people who have aspired to get a grant from the trust. I hope we're addressing both issues raised by members, and we will bring this back to you.
Thank you. Councillor Dempster.
Thank you, Chair. I'm grateful to you for the indulgence as well, and it just struck me as well why the Education Committee does not have all the therefore it had to be a council decision, and I don't know how Mr. Haswell addressed that. And it may also be useful if we set up a temporary committee funds, if that's appropriate mechanism until such time as the due process is established for members prior to.
Thank you. Mr. Haswell.
I'm not sure what Councillor Dempster means by a special committee. Clearly, in terms of the regulator, in terms of the registration, it's the Education Committee. We're going to put it to the Education Committee to have all outstanding applications determined. We are conscious of the fact that members, particularly in the local area, are looking for a change, and we will take that through an appropriate channel by bringing a report back. If intended that local members will become the trustees of the John Wallace Trust, that's what we'll put in the trust deed. But that will come back to members for determination.
More than happy with that, Chairman. Thanks.
The second item I'd like noted is with regard to the minute of the meeting of the 6th of June 2013, para 3.3, the addition of a final bullet point in the outline business case. And that addition should read, quality of personnel, curricular, and vocational support for all children, young people. So if we can go to the minute, the ad hoc review of schemes subcommittee on the 16th of May. Thank you. Thank you. The employment and appeals subcommittee, 15th of May. Thank you. Thank you. Pension subcommittee, 23rd May 2013.
Second.
Thank you. Education committee, 28th May 2013 and 6th of June 2013.
Happy to move 28th and the additional June.
6th of June.
With the additional.
Thank you. Thank you. Licensing panel, 23rd May 2013.
Happy to move, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Planning, Housing and Environment Committee, 14th May 2013. Thank you. Thank you. All other minutes are for noting. I have no other business. Thank you very much for your attendance.